It is 6:45 in the morning in Kyoto. A 7-year-old boy is standing in the garden, barefoot on the stone path. Eyes closed. The air is cold. His mother stands a few meters behind him, equally still. They are not praying. They are not exercising. They are not doing anything that would make sense to most Western parents watching from the outside. They are doing nothing. Together. On purpose. 15 minutes later, that boy sits down at his school desk. His teacher will later describe him, along with most of his classmates, using a word that has almost disappeared from Western classroom vocabulary. Ready. Not compliant. Not medicated into stillness. Not entertained into temporary focus. Ready. Genuinely, neurologically, ready to learn. And the difference between that boy and a child who arrived at the same desk distracted, dysregulated, and already exhausted by the demands of the morning, that difference was built in the 15 minutes before he ever left the house. Stay with me. Because what Japanese families do in the first hour of the morning is not a wellness trend. It is a precisely calibrated neurological preparation. And by the end of this video, you will have 3 things you can begin tomorrow morning. Let's start with what most Western mornings actually look like inside a child's nervous system. Because this is the part nobody talks about. The average Western school morning is, from a neurological standpoint, a stress event. Alarms. Rushing. Screens. Breakfast eaten standing up or skipped entirely. A car ride filled with radio noise or a parent's anxious running commentary about being late. A child arrives at school having already spent 60 to 90 minutes with an elevated cortisol level, a dysregulated nervous system, and a prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for focus, decision-making, and emotional regulation, that is already partially offline. And then we ask that child to sit still, pay attention, and learn. Researchers at the University of British Columbia studied cortisol patterns in school-aged children across a typical morning. What they found was striking. Children who experienced high stimulation, high-urgency mornings showed significantly elevated cortisol at school arrival that persisted for up to 2 hours into the school day. 2 hours. That means that for the first 2 hours of school, a significant portion of Western children are neurologically in a stress state, and a stressed brain is not a learning brain. It is a surviving brain. Japanese parents have understood this intuitively for generations. And the morning rituals they have built around their children are not coincidentally calming. They are deliberately, precisely calibrated to bring the child's nervous system into what neuroscientists call a regulated baseline before the demands of the day begin. The first element of the Japanese morning ritual is called Chorei. It translates loosely as morning gathering or morning alignment. In Japanese schools, every single day begins with the entire school assembling, not for announcements, not for entertainment, but for a few minutes of shared stillness, a brief acknowledgement of the day, and a collective orientation toward intention. But Chorei doesn't start at school. It starts at home. In traditional Japanese households, the morning begins with a moment of acknowledgement before activity. Before breakfast, before screens, before conversation fills the space, a brief, quiet moment of presence. Sometimes it is a few seconds of stillness at the family altar. Sometimes it is standing at the window and observing the morning light. Sometimes it is as simple as a family sitting together in silence for 60 seconds before the first word of the day is spoken. What this does neurologically is significant. The brain, upon waking, spends approximately 20 to 30 minutes in a transitional state between sleep and full wakefulness, a state of heightened neuroplasticity where it is unusually receptive to emotional tone and environmental input. What a child experiences in this window doesn't just set the mood for the morning. It literally shapes the neurological template the brain uses for the rest of the day. A morning that begins with stillness, with gentle sensory input, with calm, programs the nervous system toward a regulated baseline. A morning that begins with noise, urgency, and cortisol programs the nervous system toward a stress baseline. And that programming, repeated across hundreds of mornings throughout childhood, becomes structural. It becomes the default. The second element is one that sounds almost absurdly simple. And yet the research behind it is some of the most consistent in developmental neuroscience. Japanese children walk to school. Not as exercise. Not because their parents can't drive them. As a deliberate neurological preparation for learning. In Japan, the practice of children walking to school in groups, called Toban, is so embedded in the culture that it has its own social structure. Older children lead younger ones. Routes are established. The walk is unhurried. There are no earbuds. No phones. Just movement, fresh air, and the low-level social engagement of walking alongside peers. Here is what 20 minutes of moderate walking does to the brain before school. It elevates levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a protein that neuroscientists have called miracle grow for the brain. It activates the hippocampus, the brain's primary learning and memory center. It regulates cortisol. It increases dopamine and serotonin baseline levels. And it does all of this without a single screen, supplement, or structured intervention. A child who has walked 20 minutes to school arrives with a brain that is chemically, structurally different from a child who was driven. More receptive. More regulated. More ready. John Rady at Harvard Medical School spent years documenting exactly this relationship between morning movement and academic performance. His conclusion was unambiguous. Exercise before learning is not a luxury. It is a neurological prerequisite. Japanese children have been fulfilling that prerequisite, on foot, every morning, for generations. The third element is the one I find most quietly radical. Because it asks something of parents that is genuinely difficult in the context of modern life. Japanese parents protect the morning from information. No news. No adult conversations about schedules, logistics, or the pressures of the day. No phones at the breakfast table. No background television. The morning meal, which in traditional Japanese homes is a specific, consistent, nutritionally intentional meal of rice, miso soup, fish, and pickled vegetables, is eaten in relative quiet. With presence. With the simple, radical act of tasting food and sitting with the people you love before the world rushes in. What this protects is something that developmental psychologists call emotional availability, the quality of a parent's presence that a child's nervous system reads not through words but through the body. A parent who is distracted, stressed, or informationally overwhelmed at breakfast is physically present but neurologically absent. And children feel that absence at a level below conscious awareness. It elevates their own stress response. It sends the nervous system into a low-level alertness that persists long after the meal ends. A parent who is genuinely present at the morning table, unhurried, unscreened, emotionally available, does something extraordinary simply by being there. They regulate their child's nervous system through proximity and calm. They hand the child a neurological template that says, the day ahead is manageable. You are not alone in it. Begin from here. 3 things. Starting tomorrow morning. First, 60 seconds of silence before the first screen, the first word, the first demand of the day. Just 60 seconds. Stand at a window. Sit together at the table before breakfast. Let the morning exist before you fill it. Second, if there is any way to build walking into your child's morning, build it. Even 10 minutes. Even part of the route. The brain your child brings to their first lesson will be measurably different. Third, put your phone face down at breakfast. Not for the whole day. Just breakfast. Be the regulated nervous system in the room. Let your child's brain borrow your calm before they go out to face the world alone. The Japanese morning is not a ritual for its own sake. It is an understanding, built across centuries of observation, that how a child begins their day shapes what their brain can do with it. 15 minutes of intentional morning. That is the distance between a child who arrives ready and a child who arrives already spent. Build the morning. Build the brain. If this video gave you something to take into tomorrow, share it with one parent who needs it.